Hello, everybody. This is Tom Eckert here. You're listening to my podcast, Numerology, a GPS for the soul. This is your place to learn about the true power of numerology and how to use it to bring out the best in yourself, understand your loved ones better, take wise decisions, and prepare for your future. In other words, how to live your life aligned with your true destiny. Take your time to educate yourself and share these podcasts with your friends and family so they too can enjoy the great benefits of numerology. Enjoy! Hello there, and welcome to all my listeners to yet another shorter episode called Food for Thought. Today, as you probably already read, the title is Childlike number 3 can teach us great wisdom. It's going to be a very interesting short episode talking about the deeper spiritual wisdom that can often be overlooked that number 3 has to give us. So before we dive into the topic of today, first of all, I want to welcome everyone who is new to this podcast. We discuss here numerology as a path for inner transformation, inner growth, self-understanding. My attempt as a professional numerologist is to make numerology accessible and applicable for everyday life matters, to use numerology to make ourselves more conscious, more aware human beings, to grow spiritually and therefore to lead a life that is much more aligned with the greater whole, the bigger picture of our life. In my understanding, that's the real potential of numerology, to do that and also to make us understand one another on a much deeper level and therefore promote world peace and interpersonal understanding, compassion, and love. Now, a few things you should know about if you want to dive deeper into numerology. The first thing is that I always highly recommend to get yourself a numerology reading. Now, if you don't know what a numerology reading is, I'll say briefly that it is a beautiful, profound way to get to know yourself, the choices of your soul in this lifetime, the lessons you're meant to learn and master throughout this lifetime, the challenges you will need to go through in order to truly become the masterful role model you're supposed to be, the traumas you're dealing with, and so much more, even to understand the different or the changing energies of every year in your life. If you want to get yourself a numerology reading, you can contact me through my website link that's provided in the episode and the podcast description. Secondly, if you are interested in having a spiritual career, or if you perhaps are at a point of defining or redefining your career and wish to pursue numerology as a career, then you should know that I am offering a full path of certification from beginner to expert numerologist. If you want to read more, check out the link in the podcast description and the episode description. And of course, if you enjoy this podcast and want to keep learning more quality numerology, make sure to click the follow and subscribe button in whichever platform you are listening from and become part of my numerology family and get updated with my latest podcast episodes. Okay, my friends, let us dive in. So we often attribute wisdom, spirituality, and depth to numbers like 7 and 9, and sometimes even a combination of 7 and 9. Pythagoras, as a matter of fact, who's considered the father of Western numerology, always said that somebody born with a 7 as a major number, as a main number, is destined for spirituality. Now, there is some truth to the fact that 7 can have spiritual inclinations, but as a well-seasoned numerologist, as someone who's met hundreds and hundreds of people, who's seen so many charts, who's investigated numerology very deeply, I can confirm that there are many 7s who are not spiritual, and also 9s who are not spiritual. And in contrast, I've seen people with other numbers that are deeply spiritual. And today, specifically, I want to dive deeper into number 3. So just to kind of keep on that same line of thought, we believe that these numbers, 7 and 9, have the natural capacity to lead us into deep spirituality. And we often believe that more easygoing, childlike numbers, again, just an example, 3 and 5, lack the depth and therefore can also lack in spiritual wisdom. And by the way, this can also be a truth, but today I'm going to present another perspective. Now, in a sense, there is a truth in the fact that 7 and 9 are vaster, are deeper, are more multi-layered than numbers like 3 and 5. But deeper and more multi-layered doesn't necessarily mean more wise and more spiritual. And so today we're going to dive into a bit of an out-of-the-box perspective about spirituality, spiritual wisdom, and particularly the spiritual wisdom that number 3 has to give us. And the first thing I want to say about number 3 is that they know how to bring us into a place of focusing on what truly makes us happy. Number 3 tells the simple truth. We all want to be happy, peaceful, and free. It doesn't, come out with big claims like we are spirit wanting to know itself and this is the universe becoming awake of itself and truth is like something that needs to be, it's either the divine chooses you and it's like the deep impulse of God wanting to know itself through us. These are all nice statements and they have their truth. And don't get me wrong, in no way am I dismissive or kind of like belittling these statements because they're very, very deep and they have their place. But we can think that it's only when 7, or 7-9 kind of combo personality is going to say these statements, only that represents real deep spirituality. But actually, there's something very simple. The truth is that we all go on the spiritual path because we want to be happy. We want to be peaceful. And we want to be free. If these were not, some kind of like outcomes or fruits of the spiritual path, none of us would ever step on the path. And so 3 just points to the simple human truth of things. We all want to be happy. It points straight to the most innocent reasons that make us embark on the spiritual path to begin with. It is not ashamed to point to the actual thing that we all look for. It's not trying to sound bigger than it really is, more sophisticated than it really is. And that's part of the most beautiful, element of number 3. It is non-assuming. It connects us with the actual human emotion or the actual human emotional reasons that make us all practice spirituality and kind of like, even move into some kind of spiritual search from the first place. So 3 teaches us that kind of straightforward, innocent, non-assuming connection to what makes us happy and assuming a spiritual search from a place of acknowledgement of this fact without trying to sound too grandiose, right? Or like as if you're bigger than life, as if, no, being happy is not enough of a reason. So simplicity, right? Simplicity, some kind of non-assuming approach and directness. Another three, thinking too much about the number 3 here. So another element that number 3 is really giving us, another gift, is that it doesn't add unnecessary layers. Now, if you happen to be a 7 or a 7-9 combo like myself and many people that I meet on the path, in contrast to numbers 7 and 7-9 as a combo who tend to always dig deeper and deeper or, vaster, seeing bigger picture, including more details and more detail. And that sometimes add layers of insight that don't necessarily make us, any freer or happier. Number 3 doesn't search for hidden meanings in everything. And number 3 doesn't necessarily tell us, look, deeper is better. You know what I mean? I think there can be this misconception, right? Misconception like that. Deeper, more detailed, understanding the workings of everything and the process, of whatever, the spiritual path or the hidden motives behind it and everything. That is better or truer. But sometimes, it's like just looking at things as they are without adding any value, without adding any added interpretation, without going necessarily deeper is exactly the way it is. It's like the sky is blue, the sun is radiant, and you just feel it on your skin. And in that moment, you're totally blissed. You're totally blissed out. You're in the sensation of the moment. There's nothing that needs to be understood beyond that. You're just sitting there on the grass on a sunny day. You feel that freshness of spring and the rays of the sun caressing your skin, and you're just completely letting it touch you. In that moment, you're present. You're at ease. You're letting go. You're receiving. You're receptive. You're one with the moment. You feel gladness, right? Rippling throughout your entire being. And what more needs to be understood? Do I really need to understand the deeper compounds that make up the sun and the fact that there are all kinds of like cosmic rays and that eventually actually the sun is just made of atoms? And what are atoms actually? Because atoms are also maybe only consciousness. Again, I'm of course saying it in a bit of a jokey manner, but do you get what I'm saying? 3 just, doesn't add these burdensome layers. It keeps spirituality light for the heart. And in that sense, innocent. It doesn't add unnecessary layers. Next thing I want to talk about is how, again, it's a little similar to the first point, but with a slight difference. So 3s, they teach us or allow us to admit the obvious. I want to be happy. I want to enjoy this life. I want to love. So by connecting us to the obvious, they share a wisdom of their own. A wisdom that doesn't complicate things. It's the wisdom of simplicity. We should not underestimate this type of wisdom. Just to give an example, and in the end, I'm going to give 3 role models of spiritual teachers that I really appreciate, that have 3 as a very central number. And perhaps some of you know them, maybe some of them are not familiar to you, and then I really welcome you to check them out and listen to them. But, teachers that focus on breathing. Just listen to your breath, right? So some practitioners will sometimes, look at that and say, oh, that's too simplistic. That's like, what do you mean listen to your breath? It's like such a beginner's kind of exercise. By the way, I completely committed that sin many times. So yours truly as a 7-9 has done that many times. I'm also a spiritual guide, and I've been studying with a teacher for many years and have been teaching myself for many years. And yes, I definitely went to that side of the 7 that can be arrogant. And by the way, if you want to know more about 7, then I really welcome you to listen to the episode about number 7 and also the karmic debt, 16-7, and definitely about number 9, to understand why 7s can sometimes be, sometimes deep and arrogant. That's part of it. Anyhow, coming to get to number 3, it's number 3 just brings us back to the moment. Just breathe in, breathe out. With every breath, you take in the beauty of life. With every out-breath, you let go of any kind of tension. With every in-breath, you feel life, or we can say, the expansion of life. And with every out-breath, you feel the dying out, the silencing of life. Creation, destruction, fullness, emptiness. So 3 sometimes uses very simple tools or ways to communicate a very profound wisdom. the wisdom of simplicity. And the wisdom of simplicity sometimes has much more impact and truth in it than a truth presented with layers upon layers that actually sometimes only complicate things. Deep theories about the energetics of everything and the deep reasons and the meanings and the layers and the levels of consciousness and whatnot, right? And sometimes you just look at it and say like, oh my gosh, it sounds like only like some super duper mega human can achieve this. And the threes don't give you that feeling. So before I move to the next point, let me just remind you real quick that you can get yourself a numerology reading and know what your numbers are, what your personality is, what are the opportunities and pathways that are opening themselves before you this year and every year of your life. If you want to get yourself a reading, contact me directly through my website to book yourself one. Again, the link is provided in the podcast and episode description. Secondly, if you wish to pursue numerology as a career, I want to remind you that I offer a full path of certification from beginner to expert numerologist. So if you want to know more and read more information, particularly about the courses and the path of studies that I offer, you can contact me directly to know more and read on the website. Again, the links are provided in the podcast and episode description. And guys, if you enjoy this podcast and want to keep learning more quality numerology, make sure to click the follow or subscribe button in whatever podcast, wherever you're listening to this podcast from and whatever platform, and become part of my numerology family and get updated with all my episodes to come. Now, there are just a couple more things I want to share about number 3. 3 has simple rules. 3s tends to keep their words, their definitions, their rules very simple and understandable. They may use a rather simplistic language borrowed from tradition. And this is very interesting. They don't need to reinvent everything. And that's so sweet. Sometimes the way they will be creative, because 3 is very creative. But sometimes you'll just see them using a word like sin, that many of us hear and like we kind of cringe and we contract. Why is he saying sin? Sin sounds like something so, antique, old school, bad. But sometimes people just use the word sin, and then they explain what they mean by that. They don't need to reinvent like a whole new teaching, but they just kind of lean on teachings of the past. They use them, they borrow the words, and they use it in like a very useful and understandable manner. They may say, for example, the Buddha said that we should do this and this and that, therefore we can learn that. Fill in the gap. In other words, they will trust the Buddha or Jesus, or any other great, figure from a great tradition of enlightenment. They won't need to question every assumption. They won't need to kind of pose big question marks on the statements of those great enlightened beings and reinvent the wheel just to kind of seem sophisticated. Okay? So they will they will trust what has been handed down to us for thousands of years through many wise ones. It's like, look, I trust my teacher. My teacher gave me this, and I trust my teacher's teacher that handed him this knowledge and initiated him into that knowledge. And I trust my teacher's teacher's teacher, who handed him or her that knowledge. So there's just a basic trust, a simple trust. I don't reinvent everything. And if I reinvent, then I do it in a kind of spirit of simplicity. I don't necessarily cancel everyone before me right? It's simple. And I find that very, very beautiful. And last thing I want to mention has to do with direct insights. 3s can share a simple and direct insight into reality and not mask everything with an unnecessary dimension of mystery or question marks. For example, yes, there are past incarnations, there is no death. Simple. Sometimes the threes teach us that the truth is right there in our face, clear and simple. They say it as it is. Sevens, again, I'm really kind of like putting down sevens today, but don't take it personal. I'm a seven myself, right? So it's just to create a contrast so we understand the point. Every number has its unique spiritual expression, but sometimes it's like the sevens will kind of say, well, what can I know? I don't really know. Is there something beyond death? Is there not? Well, the deepest, most honest answer is I don't know. Well, but then again, in other situations, and all the great teachers and all the great enlightened ones tell us like completely clearly, no, there is no death. And sometimes a three teacher, has reached enlightenment will simply say, no, there is no death. It's simply like that. Or yes, there are past lives. Yes, there are incarnations and whatever. They just say it as it is, simple and clear. So as you can see, contrary to what we usually say about childlike numbers, again, just today we talk about 3, but again, like 5 can also be included in that. They too have a spiritual expression that is profound and wise in its own unique way. They teach us that simplicity is sometimes the best path, and that we don't need to add burdensome layers to simple truths. They give us the permission to also say it as it is. We want to be happy. We want to be peaceful. We want to be free. We want to be in love. All right. So I promised you some examples of spiritual teachers, and I really welcome you to check these 3 ones that I really love. And one of them is Thich Nhat Hanh. I really think was, unfortunately, but a great Buddhist teacher. The second one is Sri Ravi Shankar. He's Indian. He comes, I think, more from the Hindu tradition. A lovely spiritual teacher. And the last one is John Butler. He's, I think, 85 years old, a British man. And in fact, he's been just discovered in the last few years, also an enlightened man. Very, very beautiful. All of them, very simple numbers, strong threes. And again, you can see how much light and how much beauty and wisdom these people share in such an easy and approachable manner. Non-assuming, very approachable, very kind of user-friendly, quote-unquote, okay? Okay, my friends, so I hope this inspires you, as always, right, to understand the numbers better, to learn numerology on a deeper level. I am all into making my listeners addicted to numerology. Okay, my friends. So don't forget, if you want to get yourself a numerology reading, you can contact me through my website link. If you wish to pursue numerology as a career, remember that I offer a full path of certification from beginner to expert. The links are provided in the podcast and episode description. And if you enjoy this podcast and want to keep learning more about numerology, make sure to follow or subscribe to this podcast. Be part of my numerology family. And as always, my friends, I will see you in the next episodes. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you did, and you want to go deeper into numerology, check out my website, tom-eckert.com. You can also book a numerology reading or even study numerology yourself through my courses. I'll see you in the next episode.